Well, talk about a game that's come to life in a session, and the numbers that matter. India are ahead by 98. New Zealand need 5 wickets, 3 wickets in that morning session on day 6, the reserve day of this first ever World Test Championship final. The 3 wickets include India's captain and vice captain as well as Cheteshwar Pujara, their most reliable Test batsman, you think. So, where do we stand? Dale Steyn, Sanjay Manjrekar on ESPN Cricket for Match Day, powered by Royal Stag. Intel presents ESPN Cricket for Match Day, powered by Royal Stag. Dale, what are we witnessing here?
It's kind of what I said last night. It was the one thing that India didn't want to have happen, and the one thing that New Zealand really was hoping for. Um, but in saying that, if Rishad Pant can come out after lunch and get going, and Jadeja can score the way that we've seen him score before, whether it be Test matches or 2020 cricket in the IPL, they could put together something close to that 200 plus mark, and then all of a sudden we've got a game on our hands. But if we see a couple early wickets after lunch, then it's New Zealand are all over this right now.
3 wickets, Sanjay, that of Kohli, Pujara, and Rahane. But how much is that little 21 of 30 partnership between Pant and Jadeja just changed the tone of the conversation or the mood of the conversation on this show?
Yes, it brings a little bit of hope for India. But having said that, I mentioned that India not out of the woods last night when we finished our coverage of the game, and even now at this stage, 98 runs ahead. India not yet out of the woods, but we've been harping on the fact that this new guy that has come into the Test batting lineup of India, Rishabh Pant, in a very short career, has played two truly great Test innings. So he's a guy who plays by his own methods, has his own vision of, how to, of his goals. And who knows, if he hangs around, has the kind of luck that he's had so far, who knows where India will end up. So Rishabh Pant, as we all expected, was going to be this dangerous man for the opposition, and it's just turning out that way, thereby giving India some hope.
Well, he's living dangerously, but living. Sanjay points out he has had a bit of luck. Tim Southee put him down early in his innings in what was the first real mistake by New Zealand in a morning that was otherwise near perfect. So let's talk about the wickets that they did get. And let's start with Kyle Jameson to Virat Kohli. Second time in this Test match. Daly looks a serious bowler. What's he done today?
He looks so good, doesn't he? He doesn't bowl many bad balls. That's the thing. You don't see many of them flying down the leg side. You don't see him bowling many cut balls. He's a tall bowler, so he hits his length hard. He doesn't give you any freebies on the front foot to get yourself going and play those drives. He's kind of always holding that length. He's been very relentless with that so far. And then when he does get one a little bit fuller, it seems to do something off the deck or even through the air. But that one just seemed a lapse in Virat's concentration. If you ask Virat, could he have played that better? He would tell you, yes, he could. But that's hats off to the bowler. That's just relentless pressure being built non-stop. Maybe the idea of a bouncer coming in somewhere along the line and just hands being pushed outside to a ball that wasn't his best ball, but he's built up enough pressure and he's earned the right to be able to pick up that wicket. And again, another one that kind of scrambled team. You see a lot of them on doing that scrambled team now. Started with Tim Southee last night, maybe even in the first innings. And again, another one of those wickets where just a little bit of a scrambled team. So maybe a scrambled mind for Virat, not knowing whether it was going to swing or not, and not too sure on the length of the delivery either.
Okay, Sanjay Manjrekar, get your book out. Get into detailed analysis of that wicket. Come on.
Well, you saw Virat Kohli had committed himself to the front foot play. Outside the off stump has been an issue for him in England, so he was backing himself to just weather the storm. And, he has that kind of patience when needed in Test match cricket. It's a method that worked for him when he got 300s in England. But I thought in the first innings as well, second innings, he overdid that. And somewhere this in the morning session, you felt that it was starting to get to him. There was a gesture that he made when he left one ball that was slightly outside the off stump, and he sort of, did this, and maybe his mind was starting to think, I've got to play some shots as well and not just be on the front foot defending or leaving. Having said that, it's one of the things that happens when you're sort of so much onto the front foot that you sometimes get sucked into playing balls that are short of length outside the off stump, just out of, sheer instinct. And he got pulled into playing that shot. So it was something that was just out of his control. But having said that, on a pitch that's increasingly giving less and less help for the seam bowler that Kyle Jamieson was able to bowl that kind of a delivery. And in this morning session that we've seen, he's shown that
Yeah.
he's in a slightly different league in that bowling unit.
So what has Kyle Jameson in particular done differently today, given that we think it's less assistance for the seam bowlers or for the fast bowlers? Dale, we see the sun out. We think it's a good time to bat, possibly the best time to bat in this test match weather-wise. But what has Jameson done differently to still be as effective?
Well, firstly, the thing straight off the bat that I've noticed is he hasn't been trying all those variations that he was trying in the first innings. When I saw him bowl in the first innings, I think it was his second ball, he tried to bowl a big hooping in-swinger. And he's kind of put that aside, and he's just gone to hardcore test bowling, which is just maintaining a hard length for a long period of time, and that's exactly why his runs conceded are so low. His economy is so low with the amount of overs that he's bowled. He's not going for any runs. He's just been he's been relentless on hitting a good length and then just changing the seam a little bit in his hands. So subtly making subtle variations, something similar to what you would do on a very flat surface. You would try and say to the guys, listen, come in, zone in on a particular length, work hard, don't worry about the assistance off the deck. We just need to be very concentrated on one particular area, and that's exactly what he's done. He's gone away from all the coming wide and all that kind of stuff and in-swingers, and he's just been relentless on a length, and he's been rewarded when the ball has done something off the deck.
All right, Sanjay, the England bowlers would be watching this. As from the evidence of what we've seen in this test match, you've had a lot to say about this approach of being on the front foot, standing outside the crease. Dale mentioned last evening how perhaps it's an optics thing to show the opposition, but is it something from the evidence of this test that Virat Kohli should not do now for the rest of the summer?
Yeah, I mean, it's a no-brainer for me that maybe Virat Kohli can manage, but it's not a technique that any coach should be trying to instill into batters. And these are all guys who started off with different techniques. Pujara was never an all-the-time front-foot player, and he takes a small step forward. Ajinkya Rahane has also become an all-the-time front-foot player with small steps. Shubman Gill, I just tweeted a video of his under-19 game where he had a back foot trigger, and then he would get forward. So all these guys have changed their technique. And it's deliberate. I think they are all sold on this this technique that's going to hold them in good stead on pitches like this. I beg to differ. And I can understand with Trent Boult and Saudi, you want to get up there and cut down their swing. But Kyle Jamieson, one of the reasons why he's been so difficult and so accurate is because he's the kind of bowler that you want to get onto the back foot as much as possible, not on the front foot. And there are a couple of wickets that he got were balls that were short of length. Pujara, the one that he played, his back foot was still on the front crease. Virat Kohli, the same. So he's one bowler where the Indian batters could have maybe explored back foot play as well. Saudi bowled to an extent understandable. Indians just have played into the hands of Kyle Jamieson with his high release point, short of length deliveries, and these guys very keen to get onto the front foot.
Okay, you could perhaps extend on Sanjay to the Cheteshwar Pujara wicket then. Seemed like a soft one at the time, catching practice to Ross Taylor at first slip, and it didn't look good when we saw the replays. What's Pujara done wrong there?
He rarely actually gets outside the off stump, caught in the slips. He gets out caught behind, he gets out more clean bowl and leg before. So it's one of the areas where he is pretty, solid in the sense he leaves balls outside the off stump a lot, plays really well. This was another case of a guy just getting sucked into a particular shot. And it's just a culmination of all that has happened before that. When you're batting out there, ball after ball, getting onto the front foot, unable to score runs. I mean, the scoring rate with people like Virat Kohli and all these senior batters who've been to England 3 or 4 times had really dropped down, and lots of the pressure builds with no runs coming. And because there's no respite, they've got 4 quality bowlers, and the pitch will continue to assist. It's not like in half an hour's time it's just going to flatten out that you can hit on the up. So it was just about eventually succumbing to a method that had just one thing of defense. Now you see, as the tail enders came in, even for the Kiwi batting lineup, where they start playing shots, start taking a little more risk, suddenly you find the bowler a little more, playable runs start to trickle in. Just over caution, I think, in the end, getting to both Virat Kohli and Pujara.
Hmm. Right. You look at Pujara as this big run machine. Dale, you've bowled enough to Cheteshwar Pujara. At the time, he was getting hundreds even in conditions alien from home. He got a big 100 at Joburg, which you remember. You were part of that team. He's not producing those big runs now. He seems to have gotten to a different kind of batsman. Do you observe anything different from that player that you bowled to, say, 7, 8 years back, to one now that's not getting those big scores as he used to?
Good question.
I mean, straight away off the out of my memory, I just remember Pujara also playing. He was great off his legs, obviously very very good off his legs, and anything under his eyes when it's really full. But I do remember him playing some magical cut shots and some magical back foot
Absolutely.
drives. Maybe on pitches when they're a little bit quicker, he feels and sometimes India. I know Indians wickets are not quick, but there's not a lot of movement off the deck. They can rush batters. He plays some beautiful balls underneath his eyes through the covers off the back foot. And it's a kind of a part of the game where I feel like he's gotten lost there. He hasn't played, and that shot today that he played, if he was in a better position, a couple of years ago, maybe he even would have gotten more onto that back foot and punched it through the covers. Whereas he kind of just stood there half and half on his front foot, just left his hands out there, very soft. And overall, just a very soft dismissal, just kind of running it down to first slip. That's a very peculiar way of getting out for a top-class batter. So he'll be upset with himself. But that's the thing that I have seen lacking in Pujara is this. I'm so used to him rocking quickly onto that back foot and playing with his hands and good feet movement to get balls off the back foot. He's kind of lost that part of his game, relying on a lot of the front foot. And if you're just hanging on the front foot, good bowlers, they're not going to bowl you half volleys. Not at Test cricket, maybe at first class cricket, but at Test cricket, they're not going to bowl you half volleys. And you got to turn good balls into good shots. That's the difference between Test cricket and first class cricket. And he's missing out on a lot of runs there at the moment. That's just my opinion. He might feel differently as a batter.
Can I
Sanjay?
do a quick recap of Pujara, the batter that I've seen from Test match number 1, and then he went to South Africa. He had a short stint there. But I remember actually writing about Pujara, and one of the things I wrote at the time was that he is a batter who is very decisive with his footwork. When the ball was up, he would go forward. When the ball was short, he would go back. South Africa, when he got that first 100 overseas, you could see a lot of back foot punches, and Dale is right, there were flicks off his legs as well. Over the years, things start getting difficult. Bowlers know where to bowl, and Pujara is not one of those very gifted players with a huge range of shots. So he had to rein himself in. And then you started seeing a Pujara with that wide stance, if you remember, under Duncan Fletcher's regime, where he started getting onto the front foot a lot. And the back foot punches that we're talking about, off late, they've started coming only after he's got a score of 50 or 60. So until then, it's just been a grind. But the one thing that I say for all batters is, if you remember, foreign experts and commentators would talk about Indian batters being great off their legs. They would say, bread and butter shot, don't give them anything on their legs. We're seeing nothing of that with this batting lineup. And again, I go back to that same thing. It's about, trying to get onto the front foot all the time. And you're missing out on those opportunities of, just a back foot flick or a punch down to point. Rohit Sharma in his short, visual at the crease showed that to us.
Okay. Now he averages 28 in his last 18 tests. His last 100 came in Sydney in that series in 2018-19. He did score some gritty half centuries in Australia in this recent success, Sanjay. But is that all a concern? Pujara's place in the team, or Pujara's form, or is that just something which you still think this player is good enough to overcome with time?
See, Raunak, India can afford one Pujara. They can't have 3 or 4 Pujaras. I saw that in New Zealand. I'm seeing it here. They could have one Pujara who would bat in this fashion, only defense. And he's won India a test series, with this approach. But if others around him also start batting like that, where it's just about blocking, then India will not dominate as much and make the life of the opposition bowlers that much easy. Having said that, he may not have got 100, but the Brisbane Test match that we won, Rishabh Pant won it for us in the end, but it was Pujara who secured a draw for us before India went on to win, because there was a chance India would have lost that as well. So I have plenty of time for Pujara, but I just hope that somebody gets into the head of Pujara and some of the others and go back to what's the basic of batting is when the ball is pitched up, get forward, and when the ball is short of length, try and just use that space behind the batting crease, and maybe your vision and your world might change.
I know that our editor-in-chief and our mutual friend, Mr. Bal, is very peculiar about using we and us when we talk about the team winning. Sanjay, do you feel a greater affection to this recent Australia series, or have you just got a little more attached to this Indian team in recent times?
No, this is me showing some attachment to Indian cricket because a lot of people feel perhaps that I'm a bit anti-Indian cricket.
Oh, so this is like your, like Dale points out, your way to show the opposition that yeah, you're on the front foot. Okay, the Ajinkya Rahane inning.
Optics,
Uh,
optics.
Yes, all optics. The Ajinkya Rahane inning seemed like a bit of a struggle. There's lots of playing and missing. Eventually, it ended with a soft dismissal. Dale, what did you make of it? It was an important innings and not good for India to lose him before lunch.
No, that's exactly what New Zealand would have wanted. They would have wanted that, and they would have wanted Pant too. I think big time. I think Junke is a great batter, but I think the scary part for New Zealand is what Pant can do because he can score so quickly. Rahane wasn't exactly taking the game away from New Zealand right there, so a bonus wicket for them, especially a little feather down the leg side. Us bowlers, we love those. Just something where you've worked your butt off for the last couple of days and you get a little softy. It's a good one. It kind of kicks up some rhythm, but it also kicked up the rhythm in Pant because the very next ball, I think it was the last ball of the over when Rahane got out. The very next ball, he ran down the wicket to Wagner and tried to hit him out of the ground. So he's showing his intent that he's not planning on hanging around there and just defending. He's going to look to score runs and put India into a position where they could potentially win this game if he can score 80 to 100 runs with the tail. But yeah, shame. You got to feel for Rahane. He worked hard and then got a little feather down the leg side. Those things happen.
Okay. Before we do get into the punt bit, that's a great conversation that we're going to have. Sanjay, sum up the Rahane innings from your eye.
More of the same, Raunak, and my views on Rahane well documented everywhere. And just the thing that bothers me happened today again. He looked a little tentative. There was one shot that he played outside the off stump. I don't know whether Dale saw that. It was a strange shot, kind of a heave outside the off stump. Yeah, and that sort of gave me an insight into his mindset. And yet again, you see Rahane getting out in a different fashion. It's not like Shubman Gill or Virat Kohli was struggling in England, on one of his earlier trips, that there was one way that these guys were getting out. Ajinkya Rahane is getting out in different ways, and you never know whether he's going to keep batting or get out. Today it was down the leg side. So more of the same from Ajinkya Rahane.
Okay, now let's just discuss this period of play that Dale points out to immediately after the Rahane wicket. Rishabh Pant seems to be in the mood to take on Neil Wagner, even if it looks ugly when he swings and misses. Every now and then, he's going to get a few boundaries too. Dale, we spent an entire summer in Australia discussing this with Mike Hussey and Tom Moody, then in the home summer with Ian Bell and a number of our overseas guests about whether there's a method to the madness of Pant. I'd like to hear from you now when you see Rishabh Pant step out after Rahane has just been dismissed, looking at the situation of the game, Neil Wagner in the opposition. What you make of this approach?
It looks absolutely horrible. Like, if I've got to be honest, it does. But you know what? It's the part of the game right now that technique kind of goes out the window, and what is required is runs. Runs is the most important thing right now. And India don't care how they get them. And Pant certainly doesn't care how he gets them. If he runs down and he heaves a couple over mid-wicket or back over the bowler's head or nicks it over the slips and he scores 60 runs, they're going to get themselves into a position where they feel they might be able to bowl New Zealand out. You never know, but it doesn't look good on the eye. But that doesn't matter because we know that Pant is a good batsman. We know that he's got good defense. He is a good batter. He's got great defense and he's got great attacking options. The key for him now is just to make sure that he takes the right attacking options. Because if he's just guessing, if he's playing a guessing game, then he can get out anytime, and that's no good. That's not gonna help India. But if he's kind of taking on the bowler to his strengths, then you feel like they stand a chance at scoring more runs. But if he's just going to run down and swing at every single ball, there's a chance that he could get out at any time. So he's got to be calculated, and he's a good enough player to be able to do that. We've seen guys in the past be able to do that, the Gilcrests and the Quinton de Koks and so forth. They're really good at that. Now my telephone's ringing.
Yeah.
Do you want to take that? We can wait.
I'm just going to pass it to my partner.
That's perfectly fine. Get Dale Steyn's getting
Right.
calls already. Someone's not happy with what he said, but
Mm.
we very much are. Sanjay, Pant, method to the madness today.
Absolutely, and always, Raunak. I don't think this is wild hitting. Otherwise, he wouldn't have had 300s and 650s in his 19 Test matches or so. So this is a guy who sort of tries to read the bowler's mind, and you saw all the wild shots that he tried today were mostly against Neil Wagner. I don't think he'll be taking on Kyle Jamieson as much. He might go after Bolt, but he tries to surprise the bowler. When he makes these kind of attempts, it's generally the first ball of the over. Or with Jimmy Anderson, when he came in with a second new ball, he tries to read the bowler's mind. Is the bowler expecting me to do something like this? No. And that's when he goes and does it. And once the bowler's antenna is up, then he goes back to, being more conservative. And you and me, we were talking on the phone as well, that he can also defend. If you remember the innings that he played in Brisbane, there was a lot of defensive play for about an hour and a half before he went on to win the game for India. Even in India against England, when he played another great Test match inning, there was a good hour and a half of solid defense. So this is not a guy who attacks to survive. It's a method to put the opposition off. And at the number that he bats, he gets the license to do that as well. So I see a lot of method to his madness.
Okay, so what's the challenge that he poses to the bowler then, Dale? He does look like he surprises the bowlers as to when he wants to come down and have a go at him. But what the bowler would obviously feel like he's in the game almost every ball against Rishabh Pant. But what challenge does he pose according to you?
Well, I think Sanjay is spot on. When I watched him do it, a lot of the time it was maybe the first two balls of the over. And a lot of the time the bowlers are running in and they're thinking to themselves, I'm just going to run in, I'm just going to try and nick the batter off. I'm going to bowl good length, kind of that stump height, whatever, fourth stump, whatever it is. And that's exactly the length that he's charging them at. He wants to charge it so he can get to that length because it's going to be full enough that if he charges, he can get just under the ball and he can smack it. So he's calculated in the way that he does it. It doesn't particularly look pretty, but he knows exactly what he wants to do. What it does now is it makes the bowler change the way that he's going to bowl, and it changes the way that he approaches the game. So he might take a Wagner and force Wagner to bowl shorter now. He might make a Jamieson bowl shorter or whoever it is, and they move away from that area where they are more likely to get a wicket. And that's when he's going to start scoring runs, even if it's just ones and twos off the hip or a little flat bat, or wherever it is. He's just going to get that run rate ticking over. And when he does come down and he finds one in the middle of the bat, it's also going to go out of the ground. So he's going to get 6 for that too, or 4 for that too. So he's now going to put the bowler under a little bit of pressure, where the bowler has to now think, what is Pant going to do? As opposed to the bowler just running in and doing whatever he wants to do, trying to get him out.
So by what you've just said, would New Zealand be better advised sticking to what's got them into this position, being disciplined, or would they rather change things up? We have seen that last 15-20 minutes with Jadeja and Pant almost making New Zealand bowl differently, move fielders out of the slips, put them to save runs. What should they be better advised doing into this session now, Dave?
Well, what you're going to see is you're probably going to see that one of their slips is going to move out down a third man to stop the nick from going over the slips. If he nicks one, they're probably going to get rid of a mid-on or mid-off, or a square leg is going to get pushed out. Whereas we've seen some of the guys get caught like at mid-on when the ball's been bowled full. We've seen guys get caught at slip. There's been a couple edges. So New Zealand are going to start losing out on those wicket areas where they want. He's in a nicket now, and there used to be a fielder there. Now it's only going to be one run down a third man. So they'll probably come out and try and get him out, and then they're going to assess it, and then they're going to maybe think what we should try and do is give him one and bowl to Jadeja. And if they get Jadeja out, they'll do the same thing. Give Pant one, bowl to Ashwin, and so forth, and just try and keep him quiet. They don't want to see Pant get off to a rocketing start where he scores 20 or 30 quickly after lunch. That's not what they want. So they might give him the space, but then they're going to lose out on where they would have gotten him out.
Seems like a game
30
of
minutes,
numbers.
Raunak, 30 minutes
Please.
after lunch are going to be absolutely crucial. And that should be, New Zealand's agenda. They are one goal is to try and get Rishabh Pant out. So I believe, after lunch, I know Kyle Jameson has bowled a lot, but they've got to get him back into the attack, try and get him fresh and again going hard at Rishabh Pant and maybe avoid guys like Bolt and Wagner who will bowl full and be a bit slow left arm seamers. I think will play into his hand. Have somebody who can bowl over the wicket, angling it away. So I would go Saudi and Kyle Jameson and a last sort of ditch effort against Pant because anybody with less potency, Pant will, play the kind of inning that might just take the match away from them. So they've got to get their best, bowlers who can get a bit of bounce as well from the surface to bowl to Pant in the next 30 minutes.
Game of chess now, you think, and therefore it's a game of numbers as well. At what point do India feel like they would be safe? At what point do New Zealand, feel like this is what we can chase on the 6th day in the final session and a half? Then lead is 98, Sanjay. Is there a number in mind at which point India you think would be safe?
I can never answer these questions well because I can just say that India is still sort of not out of trouble, but to make calculations and stuff, maybe, if you can quickly get in touch with Gaurav Sundaraman and ask him to.
Well, I put it this way: how much are you if it's about 130, 140, maybe 150 to get Dill? Does that keep both teams in it, or is that still sort of tilted heavily in favor of New Zealand? They can decide if they want to chase this down, and if things go wrong, still draw it. Is 150 the number we're looking at right now to make this a fascinating end to this Test match?
I think 150 New Zealand would fancy their chances.
Okay,
but how
they
many
would
overs
think
left,
that
right?
that's a score. That's the key, is how many overs are going to be left. But the way that Pant scores his runs and goes about it, there'll be a lot of overs, to score 160. If India are all out. For India to be safe, Callis always used to say 500, so they've got a long way to go to get to 500. But it's about time now, really, for them and runs. They're going to have to score runs, but they're going to have to hang in there for as long as they can to just take some time out of this game, so New Zealand don't feel like they've got the rest of the day to score a small margin of runs.
Yeah, you'd think because we are making up time, we still have officially 73 overs more in the day. 98 overs were to be bowled today. 25 were bowled in the first session. So you do have a lot of overs, and it looks like we've got the best weather since a long time in these conditions. So if light does not become a factor as we go closer to the end of play, then you could see a lot of those 73 overs bowled, in which case New Zealand would still fancy their chances. Dale's 10 points out. Right. It's been a fascinating session. It should make for an intriguing first 20-30 minutes after lunch. And we will be with Sanjay Manjrekar and Dale Steyn at tea time. Again, extended session. So check your local timings and join us on Intel Presents ESPN Cricket for Match Day, powered by Royal Stag. The lead is 98. Pant and Jadeja at the crease. This should be fun. We'll see you at tea.